median regression process and how you can use your calculator to determine the equation of that line. First, you'll need to enter all of the data into your calculator. The easiest way to do that is begin by pressing the Stat button, which is over here next to our directional arrows. Once you're inside of the Stat menu, you're going to choose option number 1, which is Edit. This is where you can type in individual lists of data, and in our case, it'll be bivariate data. We have 2 variables that we're measuring. So we're going to choose Enter on option number 1. Now you'll see for the sake of time that I already typed in the 2 lists of numbers from our example. We're going to assume that L1, and it's best to follow this best practice, L1 is going to be your X variable and L2 is going to be your Y variable. After your data is entered, you can press Stat one more time and arrow over to the first menu, the Calc menu, and you're looking at option number 3, which is the median option. So we're going to arrow down to option number 3, and we're going to choose Enter. And now you're asked, where is your X variable and where is your Y variable? So our X variable was in L1, our Y variable was in L2. The newer calculators have gotten very good at populating that information for you because they assume that you're going to start with L1 and L2. You don't have to, but they're going to assume that you will. The other thing you might want to include is if you arrow down to Store Reg AQ, that's asking you where do you want to store your regression equation. And there's a couple places in the calculator that it would make sense to store your regression equation, and I'm going to show you the most popular one. So in order to access this particular option, you're going to choose the VARS button, VARS, which is directly underneath the down arrow. And we're going to arrow over once to YVARS, and we're going to choose the function option. And when we choose the function option, you'll see all of our familiar names for the lines when we press Y equals, Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4, and so on. For the sake of conversation, let's just choose Y1. And then after we choose where we're going to store our equation, we're going to arrow down one more time and press Calculate. And there's the variables for our median regression for this data set, which is exactly what we got by hand. The reason that we store the equation into Y1 is that now when I press Y equals, you'll see the equation was stored there automatically for me. And if I press Graph, there's the equation of the line. Now you also have the option to look at the data against that line. So we can turn on our stat plot, press second Y equals, and we're going to choose option number 1, plot 1, and we're going to turn on plot 1. All of these other markers can stay the same. We're going to use L1 and L2. That's what our mark's going to look like. We're going to tag them. We might want to tag them in a different color since our line was blue. So we can arrow over once we get down to that menu. We'll pick a different color. Let's just pick magenta. We'll go back into our Y equals. You'll now see that plot 1 is lit up. You'll now see that plot 1 is lit up. And if I graph, there's one of the points. But if I open up my window a little bit, I know all of my variables are positive, and I know my X values went up into the 20s. I know my Y values are all positive, and my Y values, we'll throw it out to 60. If I press graph on this, now I can see my line against all of those points. So walking back through those steps one more time, all of the steps. We went into stat to enter our list of data. We went back into stat and we went down to median, I pressed the wrong option. And we went down to median. In here we have list 1 and list 2. It was in store where we chose the Y variable by going to VARS, choosing YVARS, choosing Y1, and pressing calculate. We looked in Y equals in the upper left-hand corner and we see 3x plus 5. We pressed second Y equals to turn on our graph plot. Then we adjusted our window so that we could see everything. and then we look at the graph of our line against those dots in the scatter plot. Lots of those steps are the same regardless of the type of regression that you use. Turning on the stat plot, storing in Y1. Many of those steps are the same. So in the event that you're met with another type of regression, and the calculator has plenty of options when it comes to regression types, some you might want to experiment with, it is likely that you'll use a lot of the same steps in order to graph both the points in the scatter plot and the curve itself.